He prepares to fortify the army in the south with new troops, and more importantly, with a new commander. But the man he wants to lead the Continental Army in the south is snubbed by Congress. Instead, the Continental Congress will send their man. They turn to General Horatio Gates, the hero of Saratoga, to head up the Southern campaign. George Washington is furious. They have chosen one of his greatest rivals and a general he considers inferior. But for now, Washington can do nothing to stop an unfolding disaster. In the Carolinas, civil order crumbles as patriots and loyalists battle each other. In July, Congress scrambles to form and equip a Southern army. At its head, against the advice of George Washington, Congress sends General Horatio Gates. Gates was the hero of Saratoga 3 years earlier when he defeated General John Burgoyne in the largest British surrender of the war. Yet there are whispers. Some say he stole credit for Saratoga from Benedict Arnold and Daniel Morgan, that he is not the great general he claims to be. Gates, ever proud, ignores the doubters and focuses on his grand ambitions.
Horatio Gates wanted to be commander-in-chief of the American Army. And it goes much beyond that. Whoever was the victorious leader of the revolutionaries would emerge as the leader of a new nation. There had to be a new ruler, some new kind of ruler. No one had decided what yet. I think he might have been that ambitious and that foolish.
But the challenges of the South still await him. Gates will soon take charge of an army in a dire state. He will inherit 1,400 soldiers still reeling from the defeats at Charleston and Waxhaws. "I have," says Gates, "an army without strength and a military chest without money." In the barren swamplands of South Carolina, Gates's army of professional soldiers slowly starves. They are as short on provisions as they are on the will to fight. Gates does little to alleviate their conditions. His soldiers, many of whom have been in the army since the outset, turn even more bitter.
Being again disappointed, fatigued, and almost famished, their patience began to forsake them. Their looks began to be vindictive. Mutiny was ready to manifest itself. Colonel Williams.
But Gates will soon get relief. The Patriot militia, who have been fighting their own wars in the backcountry, now turn out to fight alongside the army. What they lack in experience, they make up for in spirit. The militia are itching to take on the British, and General Gates thinks they can. The Continental soldiers, now in the minority, are less sure. They foresee trouble.
We soldiers could not imagine how an army consisting of more than 2/3 militia, and which had never once been exercised in arms together, could perform in the face of an enemy. Colonel Williams.
Gates will mount his campaign against Cornwallis, ready or not. Faith in his militia and in himself is at an all-time high.
Gates has still been stung by assertions that he doesn't really deserve the credit for the victory at Saratoga. He sees an opportunity to silence his critics and show them once and for all that he, in fact, is the best and most experienced American battlefield commander, and that he can beat the British, whether on the defensive or on the offensive.
Gates's chance comes sooner than he imagines. On August 16th, the two armies stumble upon each other at Camden, South Carolina. Each side hastily sets up for a battle. 5,000 British move into position. where they will meet Gates's 3,000 men. General Gates sends his militia out front, where they get their first taste of the best trained army in the world. But his audacity has caused him to make a serious tactical error, one with dire consequences. Gates places the militia on the left of his line, a position for which they are ill prepared.
The British Army will always put its best units at the right of its line, which is the place of honor. From the British perspective, the British have their best regiments facing off against the weakest and most ill-prepared American regiments.
The best of the British is led by none other than Bloody Ban Tarleton, the butcher of Waxhaws. He now leads a fierce bayonet charge into the militia.
Can't you imagine them just standing there and watching this line of red coming at them, you know, huzzaing and presenting 18 inches of cold steel coming at them.
Fear fuels confusion on the battlefield. They are fighting a losing battle. Almost immediately, the militia panic, break, and run.
Out of the flood!
He who has never seen the effect of panic upon a multitude can have but an imperfect idea of such a thing. The best disciplined troops have been made cowards by it. Colonel Williams.
But they do not flee alone. Fast overtaking them is General Horatio Gates himself. The general who came south to gain glory now takes off on his horse as fast as possible, as far as it will carry him.
What began as a rather courageous venture now turns into a flight for his life, and he rides 200 miles all the way back to Hillsborough without stopping and becomes the butt of every mean-spirited joke in the Continental Army for the next 2 years.
I think he went into a complete panic. The situation was just too much for him. Alexander Hamilton praised him on his ride to safety. He said, it's quite remarkable for a man of his age to have ridden so far so fast.
The Battle of Camden scars Gates' reputation forever. It similarly tarnishes the army, and in particular, the militia. Few now believe the Patriots can hold the South, even though the future of the Revolution depends on it.